trade-off that is happening. I want to skip that topic now. There's so much trade-off that is happening currently. Just after your party leader announced his intention to run for AU Commission chairperson, there seems to be a lot of trade-off. My first question is, will we see the minority side reciprocating that goodwill that we have seen from the other side, especially with the declaration of this candidature?
You know, Ken, your question presupposes a factual foundation which might not be true. It presupposes, one, that the candidature, the proposed candidature, because he's not yet a candidate, the proposed candidature of Raila Amollo Odinga as AU chair is a trade-off. And to say it's a trade-off, it means he's trading off something.
I was very explicit in this. I was very explicit in this.
That even that idea is a demonstration of goodwill. Both are inaccurate.
Okay.
First, the idea of Raila going to the AU is about being, I would say it's being called and being pushed. The call for him to go has come from heads of state with whom he's also interacted and operatives within the union who believe that he is the right person to move the union forward in terms of his political knowledge of the landscape, in terms of having been the high representative for infrastructure, in terms of his connections. So it's an invite, and it's not an invite that necessarily came from within the country. It's an invite that came from outside the country. Okay. That's number one. So number two, and for that reason, there's no question of trading off. Number two, it is true that in any such situation, usually you require a no objection from the host country. But you don't necessarily require an express support. You can be elected the AU chair even if you don't have the express support of the country. But ordinarily, in diplomatic circles, it requires a no objection. Okay. So to that extent, I agree. The indication from the Kenya Kwanza has been that they would give a no objection to, you know, to Raila's election, okay? But it is not that it has emanated. I think there's some unfair supposition, almost an unfair credit that is being you know, ascribed to Kenya Kwanza, that, you know, they originated this idea, now they want Raila to go there, and therefore it's goodwill and all that. There's nothing like that. There's no trade-off. For us, we remain the minority. We welcome anyone supporting Raila's candidature. It is still a long way to go, as you know. It's almost a year in terms of process. The candidate has not been presented. The process is long drawn, and we can only wish him well. But it must also be understood that people can support you for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons. There might be those who are supporting Raila's candidature in the hope that it is making their political circumstances easier. And that could be on the minority side or on the majority side. There are also those who could be bemoaning his candidature because they think that they will now miss his support, which is strategic for their own positions. So it's a mixed bag. But the bottom line is, whether or not this works depends on a number of factors, and it's not a foregone conclusion. There's a lot of time ahead. There's the question of the application. There's the question of persuasion and campaigning. And then there's the actual election. So for me, I think we must treat it as an idea for now. Okay.
Would you agree with the analogy that Raila is a master of reinvention or reinventing himself?
Certainly I would agree. And Ken, when one day you try your hands in politics, you will realize that you must be a master at reinvention, because otherwise you will, for example, not be elected, and if elected, you will not be re-elected. Often, the reason you are ever elected for the first time will never be the same reasons you are re-elected. And if you are re-elected, it will never be the same reason you are re-elected once again. Okay. So you must be a master at that. But let's be honest. It's not just that he's a master at reinvention. In this country, in this region, perhaps even in the whole of Africa, I doubt if there's one single person who has the kind of political experience, the kind of, who has gone through the journey that Raila has gone through, including detention, including stolen elections, including rising to as high as being prime minister. I mean, give it to him.
Okay.
He stands alone and stands tall in that pedestal.
Since this announcement was made, Wakili, there's a lot that has been said about even the qualifications, but I'll not ask if Raila Odinga is qualified. What I'll ask is this: that experience that you have mentioned, do you think it can be used, for example, at that level to override some of those requirements, express requirements for you to be the AU Commission Chair?
I've seen a lot of misinformation going around. And I think by now Kenyans should know that you don't need to suffer misinformation. Mm-hmm. Just Google. And if you Google, you will see that all that is just, is neither here nor there. First of all, Raila has vied for president of this country severally. And to vie, you must submit your documents, including academic documents, and they must be verified. No one has ever doubted, because they are all legitimate, okay? Secondly, in terms of those qualifications, they are so wide that it even includes qualifications like social sciences, yeah, or related field. Anytime anybody tells you social sciences or related field, you know one related field is a natural science. So if, for example, as a lawyer, you would be a social scientist. But if somebody says, social science or a related field, then a doctor would actually fit in, because a doctor belongs to the natural sciences. So that discussion is neither here nor there. Thirdly, in terms of qualifications, if you look at the clustering, you'll see that there are 7 clusters. The academic cluster is only 1. But then there are other clusters like, experience, language, skills, leadership, competence, co-competence, functional competence, and they're all ranked, as the lawyers say, pari passu. Mm-hmm. It has not been suggested that anyone overrides the other. But more importantly, there's an injunction there that any of those requirements, the requirements are only indicative. They are not determinative.
Okay.
And all those requirements are subject to change by what they call the role manager. So for me, the question of qualification does not arise at all. Okay. Raila is not qualified. He's overqualified.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally, on this, the potential fallout within the ranks of the parties, especially, I'm interested especially in the organization that is Azimio. If Raila Odinga, I know you said it's a process, if Raila Odinga was to ascend to that level, have you, when you sit as parties, different parties forming Azimio, have you pictured what kind of organization you will have as Azimio, or we're putting the cart before the horse?
Yes, certainly we are, and that's why I said that right now it's at an idea level.
Okay. And
I think people are overworking their minds in terms of projections into the future. Mm-hmm. We have time, we have a process, and let the process play out. But in any event, there's absolutely no cause for alarm. Look, Raila has been and remains the leader of opposition. And yet there's no formal position of leader of opposition. How come? Because for some of these things, you don't need the law, you need the fact. And Raila remains and will remain the leader of our team, irrespective of what position he has. Okay. He was still the leader of our team when he was the high representative on infrastructure.
Can he still play politics with the commission chair?
The considerations are the same. Okay. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, in terms of those considerations, there's no express bar to involvement in national politics.
Okay.
But what there is that now that you'll be the chief executive of an entity that essentially superintends African presidents, to what extent do you want to involve in the affairs of any one country?
Okay.
So there's no bar, but the extent of restraint is individual. Look, the holders of that office have been playing that role. Jean Ping, you remember?
Yeah, right.
He's the one before Mohamed Faki.
Yes.
He was the chair, and he immediately resigned a little earlier to go and vie for president,
yes.
which means he was involving himself. But that becomes an individual decision. And lastly, is there a crisis? No. Whether it's Azimio, whether it's ODM, we have our constitution, we have our structures that clearly designate who's the leader, if there's any issue in terms of a vacuum, how it's to be filled. And we are very strong. We are very strong as a party in ODM. We are very strong as a coalition in Azimio. We, who hail from what was formerly called Kavirondo, have our own associations, which are also equally strong. So I think that the alarm or the fear of Raila getting the position and either playing politics too much or not playing it too much, it's all misplaced.
Okay, depending on where you sit.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We've run out of time, but I love the discussion. I'm looking